Good morning. Today again we look at some of the Psalms, 120, 121, and 122. Psalm 120 begins with, "In my distress, I cry to the Lord." So there isn't really any question, what this one is about. The psalmist is troubled. He's far from home. As we read through, he says, "Woe is me that I'm an alien in Meshach, and I live among the tents of Kedar." These are remote regions, far from Jerusalem. And so the psalmist is, far from home, far from family maybe. The very last verse, "I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war." So there's some hostility going on. The psalmist's ideas aren't being listened to. When I'm for peace, they're at war. It's just he sounds like he's fighting an uphill battle here. And then in the middle of the psalm, verse 4, "A warrior's sharp arrows with glowing coals of the broom tree." And the broom tree burned with a very hot fire, but yet, even though it was a very hot fire, there were many coals left from it. So it was a long-lasting and very hot, uncomfortable fire. And so this is kind of the distress. He's burning up with whatever's going on within him. But he's so it starts out, "In my distress I call out to you, deliver me." Take me out of this place of where I'm so distant from everybody, where people are against me. When I speak of peace, they speak of war. They're not getting along. And so the psalmist is asking for intervention. And as I think about it too, that there's some stress in this psalmist's life, much stress. And when we are stressed out, we don't sleep well, we don't eat well. When the stresses get too much in our lives, we just the mental stress and anguish affects our physical bodies of who we are. And I see that in this, as he writes, "In my distress I cry, deliver me from lying lips, deceitful tongue." The hot burning fire, the long-lasting coals. This isn't something that's just going away. And and as it ends, I speak peace and they speak of war. You're butting heads and not being able to come to any type of resolution. So the cry is to God to intervene and make things better. And it ends with that. When I'm at peace, they talk of war. So we don't get resolution either. But it's and I think that's so true in so much of our lives as well. We don't get instant gratification. Sometimes we don't get resolution. Problems remain. But in and through all of those problems, we trust that God hears our prayers, that God listens to us, and we just don't rule God out of the things in our lives. Psalm 121, "I lift my eyes up to the hills. From where does my help come? My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth." And the hills are often, they were places of worship, but more, often places of idol worship. The idols would be built up on a hill so that they were able to be seen from a distance. And we know that, oftentimes Jesus went up on the mountain top to pray, or up the hills to pray. And we know that he wasn't going up there to worship the idols and things. But, the psalm is kind of a traveling psalm, as they would travel, some of these unsafe roads, they lift their eyes up to the hills. And in the hills would be often places where there would be ambushes set, and travelers would be caught unaware and robbed or beaten, or whatever would happen. But I lift up my eyes to the hills. From where does my help come? Well, it doesn't come from the idols that way. My help comes from the Lord. And just as trusting in, watch over me as I travel. It says, he will not let your foot be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. And this is it's encouraging for us to know that God, is watching all the time. He neither slumbers nor sleeps. I mean, this God we worship, who could be like God? Nobody. And he's just, so much above what we as human beings can be. But he watches over us. It says, the Lord is your keeper, your shade at your right hand. Sun will not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. He will keep you from all evil. He will keep your life. And then the last verse, he will keep your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forevermore. The New International Version is the only Bible version that I'm aware of that says he will keep your coming and your going. This is what we would say, we're coming and going, but most Bibles translations will say you're going out and you're coming in from this time forth and forevermore. So it's as you go out, as you travel out into the world, out into life, and you're coming in, maybe you're returning home again. And I've thought about this too with, as we go out and live this life on this earth, God is with us, watching out. And when we die, we come back, fully back into God's presence. And so he keeps your life, he keeps your going out. You're going out and you're coming in, and it's, it's just one of those things that I picked up on, and I thought about that over the years, many different times, that, it's just another indicator to me of the different way we can look at things. You're going out and you're coming in. It doesn't really sound a lot different than, coming and going, but it's just a little bit of a variation that makes me, kind of think and ponder about it a little bit, and gives me a picture of God as we go out into life. God is with us, and as we come back into our homes, as we, whatever, God is with us in all of those things. And we could say it just the opposite way too, but I just like that different image that way. Psalm 122. I was glad when they said to me, let us go to the house of the Lord. Our feet are standing within your gates. We have arrived in Jerusalem. We have arrived where we have been traveling to. And, it's probably, as they are coming to Jerusalem for one of the festivals, the Israelites were required to attend the festivals in Jerusalem at least once in their lifetime, And so, this psalmist says, I was glad when they said, let us go to the house of the Lord. Let us go to Jerusalem and worship in the temple, in the synagogue there in Jerusalem. And, we are here. Jerusalem, built as a city that is bound firmly together. And then verse 6, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they prosper who love you. So pray for peace in Jerusalem. And I think about that in today's society with, with the wars going on. I mean, that Middle East part of the world, that we call the Middle East anyway, is far from having peace there. And so for pray for peace for Jerusalem, is really something that we need to do. I mean, Jerusalem, Israel, God's chosen people, the land that he chose for his chosen people, Israel, and but yet the terrors of war and all of the conflict that is there between the different religions and everything that are all fighting in there. And then verse 8, for the sake of relatives and friends, I will say, peace be within you. And so within you, it's like going back to the Psalm 120, in my distress I cry to the Lord, in my distress, so that's, the DI is talk about, stress, many stresses, distress. And so here, may peace be within you. And the peace that comes from God is knowing that we are forgiven sinners. And that's the peace that comes. And then the last verse we look at today, for the sake of the house of the Lord our God, I will seek your good. And think about that. I will seek your good. Love your neighbor as yourself. I will seek your good.